This video will show you how to replace your rear wheel bearing on this Subaru Outback. This will be located behind your rear wheel. Let's get into it. Safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done that, we're going to continue on to removing all 5 of our 19mm lug nuts. If you have a wheel lock, you want to go ahead and have a wheel lock key. As far as that wheel lock key, go ahead and align it with your wheel lock. We're going to turn this one direction or the other until it feels as though it's seated. Once it does lock in, we can remove that locking lug nut. Let's remove all other lug nuts. With the wheel out of the way, we have a clear view of our rear brakes. The wheel bearing is going to be located behind those, so let's start by dislodging our rear caliper. Now, as we make our way along the back side of the caliper, we can see our emergency brake actuator. This is electronic. Dislodge the electrical connector. Should have a protective boot. Just go ahead and pull that down. There's a locking tab. Squeeze it in and slide this out of place. A quick inspection for corrosion. We're going to set this aside. You obviously want to be very careful with this. Now we're going to continue on with our hardware that holds this in place. You're going to find 2 14mm headed mounting bolts holding the caliper bracket. You can see one down here. The next one's just up along the top. As for these bolts, I'm going to fully remove the first one and then give it a quick inspection. We'll start it back in a couple threads. Now we can remove our second bolt and we don't have to worry about the caliper falling down on us. Hold on to the caliper as you remove that first mounting bolt that we had started removing. Now we'll take hold of that caliper and we're sliding it out of position. Now as I'm removing this, I always like to take a quick peek at my brake pads. If it looks like they're damaged or worn in any way that looks like it needs to be replaced, well, now's the perfect time to do so. Go ahead and remove that brake rotor. Give that a quick inspection. We'll set it aside as well. That exposes our wheel bearing. We're removing the axle nut next. For this, we're using a 32mm socket. Now, if you are attempting to turn this with a ratchet, you may find that this is going to want to spin on you. If that's the case, you can use a pry bar down diagonally towards the ground across these studs. Just be extremely careful not to cause any damage. A hammer and punch directly in the center of the axle, we want to go ahead and break this free. Once you do have movement from there, we're going along the backside of the knuckle again. We can see the threads for the mounting bolts. There's 4 of them. We need to gain access to the heads along the rearward side. Now we're looking along the backside here, and I can see all 4 of my 14mm mounting bolts. Obviously, we want to be extremely careful as we start removing these so the wheel bearing does not dislodge and fall away from the vehicle. There's our first mounting bolt. Just like the caliper, once you have the first one out, a quick inspection, just start it back in a couple threads. Now, while we remove that final bolt, it's a good idea to be holding onto that wheel bearing. There's that bolt. It's common that the wheel bearing won't fall out of position, so I'm just going to tap this out. There we are. Just a couple light taps with a hammer. There it is, friend. Prior to installation of any brand new parts, we always want to make sure we clean and inspect the mounting areas. We have our backing plate. We're going to want to dislodge that. Of course, there is a wiring harness on the backside we want to be aware of. Just go ahead and gently hang that aside. We're focusing up at the knuckle and the axle. Go ahead and clean up this area. We want to make sure we have a clean mating surface for the installation process. We'll use some parts cleaner and a wire brush. After you've cleaned this outer ridge, you want to make your way on the inside here. When you do so, just be extremely careful for your ABS wheel speed sensor. It protrudes down into this port. We do not want to cause any damage. I'm just going to use a rag. We'll give this a quick wipe. If anything feels like it has to be cleaned up, I can use my brush at that point. Now let's just have a look at that backing plate. It's a little difficult to see the backside there, but we do want to clean that down. Now we can start bringing this into position. We have the center port here. Let's rest this on the axle temporarily. Now we have it cleaned down. I'm just going to use some copper anti-seize. We'll get a little bit inside of this port. I'm just going to use a glove finger and start spreading this around. Be careful for any sharp areas. We'll make our way along the outer surface as well. You don't need very much, just a thin coating should do. And lastly, the axle splines. We're not doing the threaded area. Now we can install our brand new rear wheel bearing. Let's get the backing plate in place. Start sliding that wheel bearing onto our axle shaft. Now we're paying attention to the base of the wheel bearing. That's where the bolts are going to go through. Now we're going to need to align our port on the wheel bearing, the backing plate, and our knuckle. Once we've done so, we'll make our way along the backside so we can start in all 4 of our mounting bolts. As far as those bolts, I've cleaned the threads and applied blue thread locker. Once you have them all started in, snug them up. The torque for each of these will be 48 foot-pounds, and we'll be doing this in a crisscross manner. And they're snug, let's torque them down. One last quick confirmation along the backside here, and we can make our way out from behind here back towards that outer portion of the wheel bearing. Now along the outside here, we're paying attention to the flange on our bearing. We want to confirm that it is properly seated against the backing plate and the backing plate is against the knuckle. There should be no movement in any of these areas. Prior to installation of our brake rotor, I always like to use some anti-seize on my mating surface, so I'm just going to put a tiny bit on here and we'll work it around. Now it's time for the brake rotor. Pay attention along the backside on that mating surface. If you see any rust or buildup, just go ahead and clean it off. Let's get this in place. Now while I have this rested in position, I want to make sure it doesn't fall off, so I'm just going to use one of my original lug nuts. We can use our axle nut as a spacer. Now we can start installing our caliper. For this caliper, we're being aware of our brake pads. We want to slide it over our brake rotor. Continuing on, I've cleaned the threads on my mounting bolts and I've applied blue thread locker to these as well. For these bolts, go ahead and start them in, snug them up. The torque's going to be 48 foot-pounds. They're both started in, let's snug them up. We'll reconnect our electrical connector Press it in, listen for an audible click, give it a light tug, confirming it's secured, and protect the area. Let's get this off of here. We'll continue on with our axle nut. When installing your axle nut, you want to be extremely careful not to use an impact tool because it will cause damage to the bearing. So I'm just using a ratchet. We'll snug this as far as possible. I'm going to go ahead and bring this down towards the ground so we can prevent this from spinning. And then we'll continue on to torquing this to 177 foot-pounds. Feels good there. To torque this, I'm using my pry bar diagonally down towards the ground, just as I mentioned. We'll carefully make our way in between these studs. When you do this, you want to make sure you're not at an angle where it can cause damage to the threads. We definitely don't want to damage that brand new wheel bearing. Before we go any further, we need to make sure we peen the axle nut down into the axle. You can see a small groove where it needs to sit. I'm using a hammer and punch. There we are. That's going to prevent this from loosening up on us while we're driving down the road. Now it's time to install the wheel. One last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. Let's get our wheel in place. We're going to start on our lug nuts. Let's get the wheel in place. We're going to start on all 5 of our 19mm lug nuts, and of course if you do have that locking lug nut, that as well. Once we have that in position, go ahead and snug them up. We'll get the wheel on the ground. The torque for these will be 90 foot-pounds. Now we've got the wheel back on the ground. We're going to be torquing these in a crisscross manner to that 90 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay, friend, we finished our installation. The next thing that we need to do is pump up the brake pedal. Take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop and make sure you have no ABS wheel speed sensor light. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.